Hey everybody, it's Missy. Thanks for joining me today. This layout is for Citrus Twist Kits, and I'm using the 2016 April main kit, and it's called Santorini. And this is for the Tuesday tutorial for this week. And I wanted to give a little tutorial on what you could do with all of those extra die cuts that you wind up with at the end of your kit. Or it could be just a handful of the embellishments or die cuts that you think may not go with your theme or your style. They're just those leftover pieces and you just don't know what to do with them. So I'm going to show you a fun idea of a way that you can use them. So I went through the basic gray Saturday morning ephemera pack here, and I picked out all those die cuts that I knew that I probably would not use. They probably just did not go with what I wanted to make. And so I'm just going to use my my adhesive gun and stick them all onto some white cardstock here. And I've just kind of made a little puzzle out of them and just kind of arrange them to where they're close together. And I'm going to go over them now with some white gesso. And I'm not trying to cover them up completely. I love the colors here. I love the pinks, the yellows, the teals, the blacks, the blues. Very, very pretty colors. But I want to give them a coat because I'm going to kind of get messy here. So I'm going to go over it with an old credit card here and just give it a base coat. And some of these are, like cardstock material, heavy paper, and some of them are vellum. Like the one that says Retail Therapy, I'm going to have to stick it down a little bit better because now that I'm adding some wet medium to it, it's starting to curl up. And so I'm going to make sure this is dry, and then I'm going to go through and kind of reattach some of it so it's flat, because I'm going to add some color to this, and then we're going to punch shapes out of it. And once you see the final project, you won't even really know that these had things on it that you may not have used in the beginning, if that makes sense. So now I've got the gesso dry, and I'm just going to add a little bit of pizzazz to what I've got here. I've chosen some colors that are in the die cuts. I've got some yellow, some teal, darker blue, and pink. And these are just some gelatos from my stash. I scribbled it onto this plastic, added some water, smushed it together, and now I'm just smushing it onto the paper here. No right or wrong way to do this. You really cannot mess this up. And you don't have to use gelatos. You could use paint, you could use watercolors. Technically, you don't even have to use mixed media on it. You could just simply attach all of these die cuts and leave it at that. If you are more of a neat scrapper, if you know me, you know I'm a messy, artsy, crafty type of scrapper, so I like to make a mess. And so I decided to just add some extra color to this. And I'm trying to add each color into an area where that color is not. So where there's no blue, that's where I'm trying to add the blue. And where there's no pink, that's where I'm trying to add the pink, if that makes sense. I'm just trying to get some extra color scattered around to create sort of an abstract look here. And this was really fun. I would suggest using the gesso in a case like this. It's going to stiffen up the paper a little bit, and it's going to help protect all of those die cuts and the cardstock when you start adding all of this wet watercolor and mist. And this is just some spray inks that I have here. I just wanted to add some splatter and just give it an extra bit of color and texture. So I'm going to let this dry, and then we're going to totally deconstruct it, and it's going to look totally different. I'm impatient, and so I'm going to use my heat gun here to dry it. And so now that it's all dry, you can see everything is dry. You've got the watercolor look, you've got all those different colors, and you can still see some of those sentiments on the die cuts here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a bunch of circles. This is not a hard technique at all. I've got 3 or 4 different size circles, punches, and I'm just going to cut this in half, and I'm just going to go to punching. I'm just trying to make sure there's different colors in each circle. I've got a 3-inch, a 2.5 inch, a 2-inch, and a 1.5 inch. And you could do any design or any shape you want. Squares, triangles, flowers, hearts. the possibilities are endless when it comes to punching. So I'm not using any special rhyme or reason here. I'm just looking at the paper, and whichever part is available, I'm just going to punch it out. But you definitely want to make sure your paper is dry, because punching wet paper is not a good thing, because it will just tear and make a mess. So I'm loving how these circles are looking. They're creating a really neat design, and I love the abstract look of them, and it's just something fun to do. And you didn't waste all of those pieces that you wouldn't use, those pieces that you probably stick in a bag or a drawer, and then they wind up sitting there for ages, and you just don't use them. So look at this. This is something that is fun. I love how this looks. I've got another piece of white cardstock. I've got my picture, and I printed my picture in black and white because of all those colors in the circle. So I don't have to worry about anything in the picture clashing. I think it makes the picture pop, and it makes those colors pop. So I'm just going to randomly stick them down using some adhesive here. I just want it to kind of look like the circles fell onto the paper. That's the good thing about being abstract, especially with circles, is you can just kind of, they don't have to be in a specific line or a form. You can just kind of let them fall where they may and stick them down. And I love how this looks. I think it's fun. And like I said, you can't really mess this up. You saw how messy it was, and there was no rhyme or reason to creating all of the die-cut mess. And so now it's neat. So you've got a messy, controlled look here, and you're using pieces that you probably weren't going to use in the first place. So I think this is a really, really great idea. I was getting excited making this. I loved how it turned out. Now I wanted to add a little bit more to the white part of my layout. Now this is something you do not have to do. I enjoy doing this, and so that's why I like to do it. I'm just using my water brush and a little bit more of the gelatos, and I'm just kind of going here and there and squeezing a little bit of water out and smudging a little bit of pink down. Now, I did not do anything to my cardstock. I usually add gesso first, and there's a huge difference I'm noticing already when I started doing this. I wish I would have put gesso down first, because the paint, the water, it just immediately seeps into the cardstock. It makes it harder to blend and harder to smudge, because as soon as it hits the paper, it seeps into it, especially with this yellow. See, watch here what happens with this yellow. It immediately absorbs into the paper. And so when I go to try and blend it and dab it up, it's not happening. It is what it is. So if the gesso was down first, it would blot up a lot easier, it would blend a lot easier, and it wouldn't be as a harsh line or a harsh shape when you smudge it down. But I am going to sort of fix it here in just a second. Not that there's anything wrong with the way I just did it. I just like a softer look, and this was a little too harsh for me, especially with that yellow, because it's so bright. So in a case like that, if it's something that you put down and you immediately regret it, you can still use gesso on top of it. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to add a little bit of gesso on my finger and kind of go over the area that I thought was a little too harsh and too bold, didn't blend as well. And mostly that's the yellow. So I'm just going to smudge over it a little bit, and it's going to help soften up what I just did. And you can still see the yellow, and you still have the watercolor effect. It just softens it up a little and makes it a little more faded, I guess you could say. So I highly recommend using the gesso first. That way you don't have to worry about doing that after you add your watercolor. All right, so I decided to do some stitching, and I used some dark gray thread, and I just did a crisscross in between each of the circles, so they're not going anywhere. And I love how that looks. It just adds some texture, adds a little bit more interest, and I think it's just something fun. I love stitching on my pages, so if you have a sewing machine, definitely give it a try. It's definitely something that is an added little detail to your pages. I think it's fun, and it can get frustrating when your sewing machine decides to stick sometimes, like mine does, but you just have to be patient. And I just noticed there's a circle at the bottom that I forgot to stitch through. Oh well. So this is one of the Amy Tan papers, and I'm going to fussy cut some of these arrows out. Yep, there's a circle down at the bottom. I totally forgot to stitch through that one. Didn't even notice that when I took the photo of this layout. Oh well, we will just move on and pretend like it's stitched through. So I've got some arrows cut out, and I'm going to use a little bit of the yellow paper here as a border behind, or not a border, but a mat behind my picture, just for a little added bit of yellow. And this is one of my favorite parts of the Citrus Twist kits each month, is this exclusive printable die cut sheet here. I love going through, and there's always different colors, different sentiments, different things that you can cut out. There's always some labels and some little word strips and things like that. And most of the time they are general, so you could use them pretty much on any type of layout with any subject. Now this is something that I decided to use just because I thought it was really cool, and this is the packaging from the basic gray ephemera. I love all those triangles and all those different colors. I think that's super fun. So I'm going to use that as a background layer for my picture. It matches, it goes with all those fun colors, and it just, I love the triangles on it. It's really cute. So I decided I needed some extra pops of pink, and so to do that, I'm going to pull out some thread from my stash and just ball it up into a little loopy mess there, and just layer it underneath the picture and the papers. And I know I sound like a broken record, I've said this lots of times, but thread is a great way, and a pretty cheap way, to add extra color, extra texture. So at this point, you know, I was looking through other things in the kits to add that was pink, and I didn't have anything else to add for pink. And so I thought, I need pink. What am I going to do? Thread is always a great way to do that. Oh wait, this is the exclusive paper this month in the Citrus Twist kits, and I ran it through my Cameo. My title is going to be Sweet Girl, and so I cut Girl out of that blue paper just because I love that shade of blue. I think it's really pretty, and it complements all the other blues. And then I'm going to use this vellum flower from Basic Gray. It's one of the die cuts. I didn't use that as one of the background pieces because I really love this one, and I wanted to use it just like I'm doing here. I did use those two little rubber leaves, and those are from the embellishment kit. They were just too perfect to not use where that flower is. These are Pink Fresh Studio. These really, really pretty puffy alpha stickers, I guess you could call them. And I'm just going to use them to spell out sweet. And I love the yellow. The yellow is really, really pretty and bright. And I think it's the perfect color to add here. So that's what I've got so far. I glued everything down to this point. And I love mixing and matching my title. I've got the alphas mixed in with the die cut. And I love the different colors. And now these are the pieces that I cut from the printable sheet, and I'm just going to layer the Remember This piece on top of that little label, and this one says Always, and I'm going to save this other little piece for another layout. I'm going to glue all that down, and I'm really, really liking this. Sometimes layouts get me really, really excited because I love how it turned out. Sometimes it just turns out better than it did in your mind, and this one was one of those. I really love how those circles turned out. So the last thing I'm going to do is add my journaling, and I do add some more paint splatters and the date, and that is going to wrap it up. I had a lot of fun making this. I hope you enjoyed watching it. I hope you try this technique with any of your die cuts or things that you just don't know how to use, or you don't think you like it as much because you don't know what you may or may not use it on. Give this technique a try. It's super fun. I had a great time doing this. So let me know if you had any questions about anything that I did or any of these products. Make sure you check out Citrus Twist Kits. And thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Have a great day.